And we are live. Welcome back. Welcome back to the Book Club Bros podcast, guys. If you are new here, welcome in. We are on part two of the Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. And man, oh man, was this a crazy read. Absolutely fire read, but we will get into that a little later. But yeah, first off, guys, how was your weekends? It's good?
Yeah, man.
Pretty
Very
eventful?
eventful weekend. Like I said earlier, got to shoot at that restaurant, friend's baby shower. Luckily, it was all in Orlando, so it
Ooh,
was like a two-in-one for me. So that was good.
that's good.
That's fun. No, we kind of hinted at it last podcast, but I did go to Halloween Horror Nights on Thursday, and it was awesome.
There you
But
go.
I will say this, without the warning, I was actually thinking about this today. I think I threaded the needle perfectly on like being blissfully ignorant to about what was about to happen, and then finding out just in time to be able to get myself ready for it. Like I was thinking about it, I wouldn't have wanted to go the last month knowing that was gonna happen if I didn't want to really know.
Right, it would have
Yeah.
psyched you out.
Yeah, it would have psyched me out. So I was like, man, that was actually kind of perfect. Like I found out right before I went. I
There
was
you
able
go.
to do some research, but no, it was fun.
That's awesome.
That's good, bro.
Yeah,
I'm
my
glad.
weekend was good. Got some new kicks.
Look,
See that.
he's sporting them
They're-
too. Oh
they're
my
bright.
gosh.
They're bright, but yeah, no, it was a good weekend. Went to a pumpkin patch, and yeah, Halloween's next week, guys. Whew,
That's
Literally,
crazy. I
bro.
know. I want to go to a pumpkin patch. I don't know if I'm gonna have time to
it's flying. It's flying. But
now. Flying.
let's fly through this couple of chapters right here. Starting off with chapter 24. All right, so what we found out from last part was basically we were going through the investigation. We found out, if you guys haven't read part one, basically Tony, Ian's developer, died. And from there on, there was just an investigation and it's kind of just going around that. And so we kind of start off 24 with a little bit more about the just doing the investigation, right? Is what I kind of got from that, where I think 24 was mainly about Elizabeth and kind of getting background knowledge about Elizabeth. She has a husband named Stephen. Stephen's kind of losing it from memory. So Elizabeth has like a diary where she writes every 2 weeks a question, and then answers that question every 2 weeks. And then
I thought that was interesting. I highlighted that
Yeah.
too, like
yeah,
just to make sure that you're staying sharp. It's kind of a test. That's an interesting way to do that.
yeah. I was curious to see what else she has in um, that diary. I wonder if we're gonna find out, because like one of the ones she wrote down that day was, how much money did Ian Bentham make from the death of Tony Curran? And I was like, what else is in that diary from 2 weeks ago that we just don't know yet?
Yeah.
But if you don't know, Ian basically made about 12 million pounds. So we'll call it 12 million bucks. Off
He got
Tony's
it
death.
back. Yeah, he got it back. That would have
Yeah.
been owed to Tony
Yeah.
as a partial like.
So kind of giving incentive on why Ian would kill Tony. Moving on to 25. You guys have anything on 25? It was a short chapter.
Yeah, I didn't really have anything on this one.
I highlighted page 90 because it says, "Sir, I did some digging and it turns out that May 29th, 1997 was a bank holiday. That's my birthday.
Wow.
That's my literal birthday.
That is.
May 29th, 1997. Apparently it was a bank
Oh.
holiday.
There you go.
That doesn't do too much for the story, but I had to highlight that. I was like, "Hey, that's crazy. I've never seen that before."
It's
the
always fun seeing stuff like that.
Right? I was just like,
random
that's so
places.
random. It's my exact birthday that they chose out there. But yeah, other than that, I had like a little bit of dialogue where they're talking on the bottom of 91, where it says like, let me at where they're going back and forth and shit with the PC DeFritas, and she said, let me ask the questions though. And then of course says Donna, and then Chris finishes off his cone and says, unless you really want to ask a question. She says, I probably will want to ask one just to warn you. And he said, fair enough. So I think it's so interesting to see like just their dialogue and stuff. How like you see what's her name, Donna was like just content doing whatever. Then Elizabeth comes along, sparks up this interest, says, I can get you on the case if you want to. And then now all of a sudden, like, Donna's like, oh, if you can do that, I want to do it. It's like, okay, you want to ask a question, you can. But it sounded like a polite question. Like, if you have questions at the end of this interview, you can ask if you want to.
Yeah.
Expecting like a no, you're probably not going to, since you're, not to stereotype it, but like you're a woman, it's your first time on the case and stuff like that. And then she's like, "Oh, I will want to actually ask questions." I wonder if that's like Elizabeth rubbing off on people, or if that's just maybe she just really wants to do it, but like that's not the type of like initiative it felt like she took in the beginning of the book.
Yeah. No, I agree. She's kind of like building up her confidence.
That's what I
right.
thought. Building up
Yes.
her confidence for sure.
Yeah, so yeah, that's right. 20 or 25 was basically just Donna and Chris talking about how they're going to interview Jason, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then 26 is a
Journal
s-
entry.
journal entry from Joyce. Joyce went on a date
Yep, talking
with
about her lover
Bernard, the chemical engineer. And Joyce also had a husband named Jerry who passed away, is what I kind of got from that journal entry. You guys have anything from there?
I was just I thought it was I don't know, I was trying to figure out why they were inserting Bernard. Like it's gonna be interesting to see what their dynamic is
Dude,
later on.
I know,
The-
man. They always throw in the weirdest characters, like the hairdresser,
Yeah,
Anthony
yeah.
or something.
And I feel like, but I wrote down like the journal entries is where like they bounce around and like try and throw you off because
Mhm.
it's where you get like a detailed, like everything else, like, you know, it's being narrated, but kind of just by like a outside narrator. But whenever you see Joyce and some of her legitimate thoughts and stuff like that, she'll say certain things that like give you, obviously she's the one that's in the background just observing everything. She says she observes a lot. So it's like she'll give you like a bunch of little nuggets. But
Yeah.
then of course she'll be like, but don't forget, I've been drinking wine since I got on the train at 7 p.m. tonight and I just got home. So I'm so it's like they always do this little stuff that just
Yeah.
kind of have you thrown off.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, I thought it was super interesting. Yeah, I am curious to see if like Bernard actually kind of makes more and more of an appearance because of Joyce brought him in. If there
Yeah.
was any intention on that. Moving on, chapter 27. We're flying through this, but yeah, we had a good beefy section as well. Trying to remember. This was. Is this I don't think anything too much.
Some of the
happened.
police work in here is so funny to me. Like, I think it happens a little bit later on, but even at the bottom on 27, they're like, you know, you get to see how these cops are like going about trying to solve this murder and stuff like that, and they're about ready to. They're like, hey, maybe we should go confront him, show him the photo. Since they have the photo, she's like, I'm thinking we just show the photo to Ian Betham, says Donna, and ask him if he's ever seen it before. Look him in the eye and tell him tell us he hasn't. Question mark, says Chris. Good plan. Like it's. I'm thinking we should take this photo and ask him if he's seen it before. Oh, that's it. Good plan. Good plan.
Yeah.
Good plan. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, and then they were just talking about ironing shirts and
Oh
that was-
yeah.
appearance.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Chris is like, it's just Chris.
Shirts
just
get
seems
shirts
interesting.
iron themselves
Seem-
out.
Yeah.
Have a way of ironing themselves out by the end of the
I
day.
feel like that just kind of describes his character a little more.
Yeah, like the
so-
Diet Coke thing
Yeah.
from the first part.
right.
Yeah.
That's a
Okay.
good point.
So a little background knowledge basically on Chris. 28. Is this where we start? Where he okay, so this is where he interviewed Chris and Donna interview Ian. And
This is so fun. This scene right here, seeing it play out from everyone's different vantage point was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
How like you get it's the first picture where you see
Oh.
Elizabeth be like, you know, down the lines like, oh, why did they have to take him outside for that picture? Now that I think about it, like you know.
well, that's not this.
Oh, is that? Oh, that.
this
not
is this is
specific
when
one yet?
Chris, all right, this is when Chris and Donna go to Ian's house. And they're like
Oh yes.
and Ian's like
okay.
and
okay,
they're just
that's
like
later on.
watching they're just watching the entire house and like like starts off like Ian's like, you know, you can hold your breath for 3 minutes if you really put your mind to it. So they're just like, okay, guy, like basically
I like how he literally. They're starting to. The problem is now with Ian is you're starting to see him like them collect data on like him. Kind of double talking. He goes, you know, we never argued. Or whenever they're talking about Ian and Tony, he goes, we never argued. Arguing is very bad for your well-being. That's what he says at the bottom of page 97. Then you flip over to 98. He says, well, listen, we had an argument. Sure, sometimes you have one. Don't you have to? Don't you? Just to release the toxins.
yeah
It's like, so you didn't ever argue because it's bad for you, but sometimes you have to just to release the toxins, right? So you did argue. So it's like, because they're like, what if I told you we got witnesses that saw you arguing before he was killed? So then it just goes to show you, like, it's just the human nature of it. Watching them uncover lie after lie is basically police work, I would assume. I don't watch too much stuff like that, but
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, overall, I mean, you can definitely tell that like Ian's up to something. Regardless, like he's not telling the full truth to them.
Yeah.
He doesn't want them to know that uh he fired Tony.
the motive behind it or the reasoning behind it.
Yeah. So, and then I think after that, like they leave the house, and then Elizabeth starts texting Donna.
Mm-hmm. Inviting them to the murder club.
Yeah, inviting. Yeah, about the murder club, and saying that they had some information on Ian. Right. I'm
Mhm.
trying to remember. Yeah. Yep. Chris and Donna went to visit Ian. Ian lied about the argument. Donna caught it, and then yeah. So now they're on their way to Cooper's Chase. So 29. Moving on to 29.
That was so funny how this is where they do the whole interview or
Yes,
the whole
dude. Yes.
the meeting with
Yeah. So what was it? Elizabeth and Joyce set that up,
Mhm.
where they're like, all right, we're gonna get some information out of this guy, and they're like, how are we gonna do that? They're like, well, we're gonna sit him in a 2.5 person couch and make him just feel uncomfortable, basically like how you two are. But then Chris is sitting right in between you guys.
And then it's so funny too because you get to see how just different people's minds can kind of work against him. Like he's throughout this whole time he's like, "Oh man, I know they were trying to be polite by putting me at the center of the room and the head of attention,
Yes,
but they
dude.
just didn't even fail to realize that I would almost rather be Donna because she's getting, even though it's a less respectful spot, it's more comfortable. But they don't even realize like they
did
know
that on
they know
purpose.
what they're doing.
Yeah, filled up his
It's
tea
so
all the
funny.
way up to the top of the cup, and then put
Right.
the cakes on the edge.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought it was good. And yeah, they were just trying to get some stuff out of him, and they found out that basically what I got from that was there was some multiple people involved, and then Elizabeth gave Donna that big uh, folder
Mhm.
full of
Yeah,
files
the blue file.
Yeah.
the blue folder.
that just said basically like the financial information that they got from Joyce's daughter.
Just linking that the money that was going to be coming back to him.
Yeah.
It's just so funny how they're working such an angle too. Like not only in the interview, but you come to find out like she intentionally complicates the file because she wants her to get back to her
Yeah.
so she
Yeah.
could stay involved. Like
Dude,
it reminds me of the 48 Laws of Power. Like if you teach it to someone else, they're gonna be able to do it. Like you're not as necessary if you have that skill and you're around other people that need it or dependent on you.
Yeah.
So
Now, I highlighted something on 30. So it starts off with Father Matthew
30?
Mackey.
Mhm.
funny. Wait,
Chapter 30.
chapter
30.
Okay.
Father Matthew Mackey walked slowly up the hill through an avenue of trees. He had hoped Tony's Coran's death might be the end of all of this. I don't know. I had the prediction that
Yeah.
Oh, so
Father
that made you-
Mackey is not too much of a father.
Ooh.
This guy's a murderer.
Yeah.
Not to rewind, but if to go to the last page, it's just of the previous chapter, so just one page left. I actually highlighted something where they're talking about like where was the sense that I had? So they're basically kind of having a summary after that interview comes to a close, and on 104 they say he feels sweat start to trickle down his back, reminding him of the time he interviewed a 25-stone Hell's Angel enforcer with I Kill Coppers tattooed on his neck. So really they got this guy uncomfortable, and then it goes down a little further and it says knit and natter, too much nattering and not enough knitting apparently, and the main lounge is off limits, says Ron. And then they go there and whenever they're talking about why do we have to do the interview in this small room, so they say, well, this room was taken up by this. Too much knitting and nattering. And then Joyce comes, or someone else comes in and says, well, this room was taken up by this. Ron says this room was taken up by this. Basically, that's why we had to do it here. And then for a minute, that made me think, like, are all these people in on the murder? Like, I don't know. Whenever I was reading that dialogue, it made me feel like the whole murder club. Like that was the first time in my mind where I was like, maybe the murder club is actually murdering people.
Oh, interesting. Like it's like they
Could
had
be.
a.
Could be them.
Oh,
that
that's a
was
good
the first time I thought
hypothesis.
that. I don't know, but I don't know yet. But
Wow.
for some reason, I thought that.
I totally read that completely differently. I
Yeah.
just read that like, oh, they just giving them excuses why they had to do it in such a tiny room for Chris. But
And that could
obviously-
obviously be true.
yeah.
It could be nothing. But for some reason, I read that and I was like, are these people Like, okay,
Actually.
yeah, like they're obviously also just on the same team, but
Chapter 30 basically switches to Father Mackey, and Mackey kind of is like going through the cemetery, kind of reminiscing, and just kind of looking at all the basically the people that have died there.
he's reminiscing, and
Yeah.
dude, there was some stuff in this that I was like, holy cow! Like the way that he painted the picture of it was actually really interesting to read. Like on the bottom, he said there are about 200 on the bottom of page 105, he said there are about 200 bodies high on the hill, a spot so beautiful, so peaceful, so perfect. Mackey thinks you could almost make him believe in God, which was kind of a weird thing to read Father Mackey say. But midway down, he goes, he walks along the row, looking at the names. The world was changing in the most extraordinary ways, but the rows are still neat and orderly, and the names are still the name. And the names are still the name. What a lot Mary Byrony could tell Sister Margaret Bernadette just 100 yards up the path. So much had changed, yet at least so much had stayed the same in that same spot. And I was like, what a crazy picture to be walking from 1874 all the way up to I think it was 2005.
Yeah.
Like
Well-
that's just like in your mind, like just all up that path.
Yeah.
It's like it puts it into perspective, kind of.
Now, you reading that, I didn't catch that, but when you reread that, so peaceful, so perfect, Mackey thinks it could almost make him believe in God.
Yeah.
Shouldn't the father already
This guy's a
believe
little
in God?
different. This guy's a little different,
Right?
That's what made me start
That's
to
some
realize
other
it too.
question marks.
And it's not even like he's thinking about this in a cynical way, but he's obviously has some real ties to that
To the graveyard.
to the graveyard.
Yeah, to the cemetery.
Yeah.
But even your first one where you're saying that he might have hoped that this was the end of it all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't catch that at first, but like
I
yeah.
didn't really think
Oh,
about
there's
that.
some red flags going
Yeah.
on with Father Mackey.
And then
Red flag, Father.
didn't he see somebody while he was there? It was like a strange random
Something.
person that
Oh,
just
we-
waved to him.
Yeah, a
and-
man
Yeah,
in a
reading the
suit and
Daily
tie was
Express.
on a bench.
yeah.
Yeah, that was odd too. I'm like,
It
is
makes
that
you
the-
wonder,
that
like, it makes you wonder what details, because you're not going to use all of them.
No.
Right.
Like, every detail can't be something. So, which one's going to be it was,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I wonder how they're gonna wrap it all up. But 30 on, moving on to 31. Switching back to Chris. Now he's in his own chair and his own side table, and he feels like the king of the world. Basically, this is just Elizabeth and them kind of still talking, trying to figure out.
See, the problem is they bounce back to certain things from different people's perspectives. So
Yeah.
I think this is still the talking about.
It is. It's like the interview with Chris and Donna and all
Yeah.
the murder club. Yeah, this is where Elizabeth gives Chris the blue file that's like 6 inches thick with all of the financials on Ian.
Right.
And then they run into Jason Ritchie on the way out.
One thing I did notice though, he says they were talking. She's like, "Well, this meeting's been all give and no take. You've been very kind." Once she gets the information she wants, she's like, "Here's the file," and he's like, "Well, I possibly shared more than I was intending, but I'm glad it was interesting."
Yeah.
'Cause of
So
the
it's like,
cake.
yeah. So.
That cake had some
Ooh.
Vodka.
alcohol.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah,
That's
that's why they
true. I
kept trying to
forgot.
feed
I
it.
forgot that they put that in there.
Joyce, the alcoholic. Yeah, man. There was like one spot where like, 'cause you guys brought it up a lot. I didn't really realize like Joyce, like the drinker Joyce, but
Mhm.
then like you guys like both brought it up how like she's always drinking, and there was some. Yeah, I think it was that point
Like
where
getting
she's
off, like on the way back from the train.
Yeah.
Like just different stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But moving on to 32. This is where Chris and Donna are talking to Jason now outside after the meeting. And
They give you a breakdown of his whole career on how his
Mhm.
life kind of panned out.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and Ron a little bit. Red Ron? Is that what they called him? Or?
Red Ron, yeah, it's because he was always a firecracker in the stands.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they go through, the public love Jason Ritchie, the baller, the bruiser, tattoos running up and down his each arm, long before that was mandatory for a professional sportsman. So yeah, I mean, basically, Jason was like the talk of the town, always one of the one of the best, and kind of has fallen off.
Yeah, he had a fall from grace. They say that he started off at the top. The boxers got younger, he got older. That's just the way it all phases out. But then they talk a little bit about his post career, where they say he had a few years in the wilderness that followed, a few years that were never mentioned by the profiles Donna had read in the papers, a few years when Jason made his money in a very different way, when he was being photographed with Tony Curran and Bobby Tanner, the years Donna and Chris were interested in.
Yeah.
So that's where he becomes an official person of interest.
Yeah. And then also, we found out in his boxing career that after he kind of retired or phased out, Jason has found out many years later that he made less money than a lot of them, referring to the other boxers. Problems with his manager. To this day, a lot of his money is in Estonia.
Yeah, what is that?
It's a country,
Oh, like it's tied up there.
I guess. I don't
Wow.
know. But
I noticed that part. I mean, they start to give you a bunch of pieces, and then of course he goes in and they start like, he actually joins the room with Ron and all the people, and he starts interacting with them. And whenever, who is it? So where does this interview take place at?
I thought it was out. Like they left.
I thought this was at Cooper's Chase.
It was.
Yeah,
I thought it was
think
like outside.
Yeah, I
Like-
think they like caught him on the way
or
coming
something.
coming into Cooper's Chase, because at one part he says I'm gonna go back inside and like hang
Because
out
he
with my
was hanging
dad.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how they did it. Oh, this is where they did it. This is where they asked him to step out for a picture. That's what it was. So
Oh,
they,
yeah,
so
yeah.
they were all
Yep.
together. He comes and shows up, and then Donna and Chris, they're like, "Oh, we need to talk to this guy by himself." So
Mhm.
hey, I'm a big fan. Would you step out and take a picture with me? So they go out in the hallway or whatever to
Yeah.
talk. But then they start like asking him these questions and basically like
They showed
not
him the
accusing
photo,
him,
right?
but they interrogate him essentially, and they show him the stuff. But basically, he says they go back and forth. He denies the photo, says I take a lot of photos with a lot
Yeah.
of weirdos or
Yeah.
whatever. But at the end of it, he goes, they're trying to like ask him if he had been associated with Tony, and he says, if I remember anything, I'll tell you. I'll get up to Dad. Nice to meet you both. Like he's trying to get out of there.
Yeah.
And they go, like, lots of weirdos ask me for photos, mate. And then whenever they're saying we have a picture of you with these people, and he says, you would definitely recognize it based off of what's going on, because it's not a random photo, right? Like you got money on the table.
Yeah.
It looks like a community, like it's actual friends there. And Jason just smiles and goes, never seen it, whenever he
Yeah.
looks at the photo. And he said, you wouldn't know who took it, right? And it says, a photo I've never seen? Nope.
Yeah.
So basically just like shuts all that down and does the whole, got something to hide is
Yeah.
what it seems like.
Yep. Yeah. Has no. They don't get really too much from him,
Yeah.
but
I mean, he did say on page 112, he says Tony Curran, he had plenty of enemies. That was like
Yes.
one little
Yeah.
thing I highlighted, because I'm like, okay, so that means there's multiple people who could have done this.
But isn't that what you say, right? Immediately?
True.
Like, hey, I'm not
Very
the
true.
only one.
right.
But like we all think about it differently. But it's like, hey, I'm not he had a lot of enemies. Why are you coming for me?
Yeah.
And then of course at the very end of that chapter, the last sentence is, and you should probably tell Donna to drive DCI Hudson. There was an awful lot of vodka in those cakes.
yeah.
It was.
Yeah, I thought it was also pretty smooth by Jason, where he was like, "Oh, let's take a photo," and then he was like, "Oh, I'll get it from Donna. Here's my
Yeah,
number."
Yeah.
And wrote it on the back. Donna picked up
Like,
on it.
I know what this is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what this is.
She caught on. She's like, "Nah."
Smooth.
Moving on to 33, Elizabeth comes straight over to the Willows meeting with the police. This is where
We meet Anthony, right?
this is where she's talking to Penny and Anthony. Yeah. And again, man, Anthony is, I don't know. They bring him up again. He's gotta be something more than a hairstylist. I don't know
Man,
why.
He just he just always throws out those random like, oh, they shot the door.
Oh, yeah.
handle to get
I
themselves
heard-
in.
Yeah.
She's like, there wasn't any.
Dude, it's
bullet
that
holes
it's
or
that barber
anything.
talk. It's that barbershop talk.
Yeah.
It's so weird. She's getting her haircut. It's like they're trying to do barbershop like gossip. Right?
Yeah,
Kinda?
because they're cutting Penny's hair.
Yeah, cutting
Right,
Penny's
right.
hair, and it's like, oh, I heard this. Like, it's one of those. I'm gonna make up something interesting for Penny almost, so she has something to almost hear during this time going on instead of talking about something dull. She's like fabricating the story, kind of.
Yeah, so in the room, it was John, Penny's husband, Penny, Elizabeth, and Anthony. And then Anthony gets all done. They leave. John, we did get one key thing about Ian. So John, I guess, watches this show while he's with Penny, and it always ends at 3 p.m.
Mhm.
And after the show,
yeah.
Escape to the Country, is straight on after Doctors, and it finishes at 3 on the dot. And that's when he noticed when Ian left the Cooper's Chase.
Mhm.
So John saw Ian leaving Cooper's Chase around 3 p.m. since he knows that his show ended at 3. And we know that the time of death was at 3:32 is what we found out by his Fitbit.
So that's, of course, the nugget that leads to the goose chase of trying to figure out if he could have done it by the trial that they're about to do.
Right.
But something else I wanted to bring up on page 116, it's just because whenever, obviously, Anthony, whenever they're at the barbershop, they're just talking crazy, essentially. But there's one point where they go, "Oh, I love that," says Anthony, someone he knew, of course. "Have you ever killed anyone, Elizabeth?" She shrugs. And then he goes, "I can just picture it," he says, putting on, and they just move on, keep talking. "You ever killed anyone?" She shrugs.
Yeah.
Not no, never kill. So I mean, obviously you don't know, but there's certain things where
Yeah,
she
man.
didn't say
Elizabeth's
no.
got some red flags too.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. But
Shoot, I mean,
It's like a
If
little
we-
too smart.
a little too smart, wants to be a little too in control.
Yeah.
But moving on, 34. So we get that little nugget from John, tells Elizabeth about the 3 p.m. about seeing Ian leave Cooper's Chase. Immediately, Donna gets a text from Elizabeth on chapter 34. When basically Elizabeth is asking Donna when Tony died. And I thought this was pretty funny, the text.
Dude,
though.
I highlighted it and
Dude,
said
the
that
text
was
is
so funny.
So funny.
Because yeah, she said like, "What time was Tony killed?" And then you see Donna's like start. So it feels like Donna maybe has a little bit of a thing for Elizabeth, but we don't even know how old. Like Donna seems to be on the younger side, but
seems
it's
young.
weird though, right?
She seems young. I
But,
think
like, you
it's more like
see-
she's sassy. Not
Maybe
like
it's
flirty.
yeah, maybe it's just really that type of friendship.
Yeah.
Like maybe
Yeah.
it's almost turning into a friendship because reading into it, it's just like she's like, "Oh, not a bit of gossip before a favor, not a kiss, not soften me up a little bit," like. And that's coming from Donna.
Yeah.
It's coming from Donna.
Super funny.
So I was like, that's funny.
Yeah, I just love Elizabeth's response to that. So yeah, after Donna's like, "What?" Yeah, basically you're just gonna start off with that, and Elizabeth's like, "How are you, Donna? Mary Leno had just had a great granddaughter, but she's worried that her granddaughter has been having an affair with her husband, that has a very prominent chin, and nowhere has been seen. What time was Tony Duran killed?"
Dude, I legitimately laughed at that. I was like, that's hilarious.
Oh man.
That is so funny.
Yeah, but so basically, short chapter. We finally find out. Donna tells Elizabeth 3:32. His Fitbit broke when he fell, so that's probably when he died. And yeah, and Elizabeth doesn't even know what a Fitbit is.
Right.
Well, I don't know what a Fitbit is either, but thank you. Yeah, it's so funny. Moving on, 35. We have another journal entry from Joyce, basically summarizing what went down in the kind of interrogation with Chris and Donna. I didn't really have anything. Do you guys have anything from the poll from that?
There's something she's you can tell now that she writes journal entries often. Obviously, we only started this book and they've only been talking about the Thursday Murder Club, but she goes, we tend to accept what people tell us they're called, no questions asked, but I've been thinking you must think I'm murder obsessed. It's all I've written about since this diary, so perhaps I'll tell you some other things. Like, you could tell that before this murder happened, that honestly kind of makes me feel like, if anything, Joyce would definitely not have been part of it. Part of, like, a whole group community of murder, because she's, like, all of a sudden has this interest in it and all this stuff like that. Really, it's been Elizabeth from the jump, right? That was always interested, or was she the one that would
Yeah,
get asked questions initially?
She was the
about
one that originally made the murder club.
it? Right.
And yeah, she was the one, like, the book started off with, like, Elizabeth asking Joyce, like, how long a body would take to bleed out.
Right.
So yeah, but yeah, that was interesting that she kind of gave a little bit more background information about just her in general.
She tried to, then just got right back to the murder.
Yeah.
She's like, but I mean, in reality, unless you're going to tell us about how your life used to be, you probably don't have too much going on in your daily
Exactly.
right now other than this murder mystery.
And then moving on, 36. Yeah, everyone's starting to go to bed. Trying to remember.
She was on this She went on
she was
a
like
date
stalking
or something.
stalking her ex or something. Yeah, she went on a date. Yes, Gregor.
Yeah, and the dude was just an airhead apparently.
One of those fitness influencers, right? Kind
Yeah.
of the
Oh yeah. No, yeah, he was like a nutritionist or something.
nutrition guy.
Yeah,
And she was only doing it just to post so that
Right,
her
you
ex
see
would be
the
upset.
I know, right? You get to see the whole like people like in a book. It's just how people are thinking, so you don't have to guess. It's
Yeah.
like this is why I was doing this.
yeah.
It's like man,
A little jealousy.
yeah.
Offer bread, but he doesn't have any carbs. Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty funny.
And then she ends with saying, like, thinking about if Elizabeth is actually her friend. She said that's like the first word that came to mind.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Friend.
'cause he's trying to find a name to call her, like Elizabeth, my
Mhm.
what,
Mm-hmm.
like not my this, not my that, but friend. She's like friend doesn't seem right either.
yeah. And then, so yeah, that's right. So yeah, after her failed date, she did read into Elizabeth's files, that the financial files that Elizabeth gave her, and then yeah, called up Elizabeth, and that was exactly what Elizabeth wanted. Was she made it that confusing, so she was able to actually call Elizabeth and keep her updated with the case.
And it's so funny too because you come to realize, or I just understand that Elizabeth and Ron and all these people, how they're getting their information is not the most legal way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Obviously, whenever you're helping out on this stuff, but she's always like wanting everything from the police. Like, hey, give me all that. Like, it's not like a nasty personality, but you can see Elizabeth is always like, give me everything you got, and then she's like, uh, whenever Donna's like, how are you getting this information? She's like, feel free to let me know how you got a hold of these documents and stuff. She goes, well, Ron found them in a skip. Amazing what you can find. A lucky break for us all.
yeah,
And
Definitely.
then boom, just moves on because I don't know, like she just has the personality or the wherewithal to be able to just be like, I don't know, I'm not gonna tell you that.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna move on, even though I would make you tell me that
yeah.
type stuff.
But basically, she kind of gave her the
It
clip
gets stuff
notes.
done though.
Yeah, I mean, she knows how to way to convince people to do what she wants.
That's what it seems like.
But basically, the breakdown is what was revealed in the financials, which Elizabeth tells Donna, is basically Ian Vietnam's business, very profitable, very well run. Tony owns 25% of Cooper's Chase. We kind of knew that, of what he builds. So then basically, if he dies, he gets all of that 25% back, which is like millions. And that's kind of what gives the motive to Ian on why he would kill Tony. And now Donna knows that.
That's kind of the agreement they come to is like,
Yeah.
retaliation, like get it first before, obviously.
Yeah. Moving on to 38. Now, this is kind of the switch now. It's the next morning, and everyone's going for a joyride. So we found out from Penny's husband about the 3 o'clock, and now it looks like Elizabeth, Ibrahim, Joyce, and Ron are going in Ron's car, and they're driving from Cooper's Chase to where Tony's house is to see if he can make it in the time for the death.
Right. So on the bottom of page 130, they give you the whole breakdown. This chapter is basically they knew somehow that Ian Bentham had left Cooper's Chase at 3 p.m. and they knew that Tony Kern had been murdered at 3:32. Ibrahim had to explain to everyone what a Fitbit was first.
Yeah.
But then they were like trying to time the journey to Ron. They had to, whatever it is. Ibrahim knew that they could have plotted. I thought this was funny. He said Ibrahim knew they could have plotted the journey on SatNav, but he also knew that no one else realized that, and he had fancied the drive. It had been a long time. So what does that mean? Because why is Ibrahim, the tech one? He's the tech one of the group. He's the one that knows what the Fitbit is, explains it. Why, if they already knew if he could have made it by looking at a satellite navigation, why would he convince them all to drive out there? Well, he says that, it had been a long time.
Yeah.
He fancied the drive.
Yeah.
So what is what is Ibrahim wanting to do out there, I wonder?
You think
You don't think
mean,
there's any suspicion to that? I kind of a little bit, obviously.
I think he's just stuck in Cooper's Chase, and he
you think it's nothing more
like
than
a
just wanting to get
joyride.
out?
I think a joyride, maybe, possibly,
true.
could be throwing him off, could be.
It was
we
just
never,
like Ibrahim knew they could have plotted the journey on the sat nav, but he fancied the drive. It had been a long time. They just don't say what had been a long time, so that's what gave me a little bit of pause. But at the same time, like, definitely could just be another
Now,
smoke and mirror.
we don't find out exactly if he could have done it, right? Because it jumps back.
No, dude, that's the thing. Well, are you
Or
talking about right now?
no, there's like that dialogue. I think it's further in because
Yeah,
then
later
it
on they
switch.
talk about when they actually do it,
Yeah,
when
because
they
then it
complete it,
yeah
because that was just the idea
Yeah.
process. Like that's what they want to do.
yeah. So the murder club is on their way. They're testing out to see if Tony is or if Ian could even make it there in time to kill Tony, and then it jumps back to Chris and Donna, and basically Donna's updating Chris on what Elizabeth told her. Basically,
Well, really, they go and do that whole like briefing, right? And they start asking like, where are you getting this information from? Like people are once they're assigning like, you work on this, you work here. One of the people goes, "Where's this info coming from?" Asks Di Kate, and he goes, "Sources."
yeah,
I was just like, man, because like obviously you can't let them know how you're getting your stuff. Like, so before he sends everyone off on their way, like all this briefing that's going on, like half the information, and now like the reason that they have the modem and stuff like that is basically because of the Thursday Murder Club.
yeah.
You know,
And then they're also trying to get Tony's phone records as well.
Mhm.
I think that's it from that chapter.
40's a short one.
Yeah, because then Elizabeth on the way when they were driving on the road trip, Elizabeth, I think Elizabeth, right? Texts Donna and says, "Is there anything else that you guys want to pass on?" And they said, "Nope." Said my sources saw Chris buying donuts this morning. You lucky thing. Also, Joyce says hello.
She always is just putting out there like she knows what's going on.
Yeah,
like, oh,
right.
I saw that Chris is doing this for
Yeah.
that. Don't forget. Oh, I know you got this going on.
Yeah.
She's very involved.
And then okay, then it switches. All right, chapter 40. Bernard Cottle. Who the heck is this guy?
This is this is Joyce's
Okay,
lover
like
friend.
why
Boyfriend, yeah.
put
Yeah.
this in? That's literally what I put in the notes. I'm like, all right, it's one chapter. It's like 3 paragraphs long.
Wasn't even a journal entry.
No, it's nothing. It's just like I was like, why put this in about this puzzle? And
It's a little bit dark too. It's a little sad.
yeah, he just like doesn't want to. He
Where
doesn't
he
get
sits
out.
every day and waits for what's to come.
Yeah, like what? I don't understand. So that was a little weird.
Imagine that ends up being a huge chapter.
Right? Exactly, right?
Go back and read chapter 40. You need to know.
Exactly.
You probably skimmed over it. It was an important chapter.
Most important one right there. But moving on, 41. So now this is where it gets into the
Yeah,
thick of it
drive,
of the
yeah.
drive.
Yeah.
So fast forward, they finally get it. They finally drive there. Ron's out. He needs to take urinating in the woods. Everyone's asking what's going on. We got there. And then Elizabeth is asking Ibrahim about it. And basically, they start kind of getting distracted because Ron comes back. And there's a bunch of dialogue.
But,
and
like, this-
Ibrahim's trying to explain it.
And this is where it's confusing though, because if the trip was kind of basically pointless from the jump, eventually you're gonna have to explain like why you were doing it. Because he was like, he didn't even end up there was like all these nuggets. Like there was no traffic because I'm a very efficient at plotting routes. I have a sixth sense. Other people would have hit traffic. I assure you that they would have, but I didn't. And I'm like, wouldn't you want to take the most likely route that he took? Because it even goes down to say, now Betham could have taken one of these 3 routes. He might have taken our route, but I doubt it. I don't think he has my insight for road networks.
Yeah.
So he's like, you took the route. So this is where I had that idea. It's like the purpose of the trip is to figure out if he could have done it by plotting the time. And then you intentionally don't take his route and you try and take your own routes to get there as fast as possible.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense.
And kind of boast that like
Yeah.
I could have done it.
And then he was like trying to explain the numbers to people. So can I explain it? And then of course Ron comes back from the woods, says no math. Says Ron, could Bitham have got here on time? He says, well, I can show you. Ron says this way, Ibrahim, 75, mate. I'm 75. Could he have done it? And he just basically
Cliffhanger.
yeah, it's just a cliffhanger. Like, could he have done it?
And we never find out if he
Doesn't
could have
even
done it or
answer.
not. So annoying. But moving on, 42. Switching back to Ian on his treadmill, reading a "Screw It, Let's Do It" kind of motivational book, I guess. Maybe we'll have to read that book on the book club. But
Richard Branson.
basically, he's just I wonder if that's an actual book.
It might be.
Might be. That'd be funny if we have to read that. But basically, he's on the treadmill and he's listening to this motivational book and he's like, all right, let's do it. I'm committing. We're gonna start doing the graveyard. Doesn't matter what Mackey says. He's thinking about Father Mackey. He wouldn't want anything get out of hand there. In the good old days, he would have sent Tony Curran around, quiet word with him. But Tony's gone, and Ian is not going to dwell on that anymore. So basically, he's just committing. He's like, all right, we're gonna set the plans in motion.
But there's also, I feel like there's a huge point on here. I feel like that is either going to be a big deal or maybe it's just to throw you off, because it says as Ian runs, he's thinking about the graveyard and he's thinking about Father Mackey. He wouldn't want anything to get out of hand there. And in the good old days, he could have sent Tony Curran around to have a quiet word with him, but Tony's gone, and Ian is not going to dwell on that any more than Richard Branson would do. Branson would move on, and so will Ian. So I read that part, and I'm like, it sounds a little bit like Ian kind of wishes Tony was still here. And does that make me, and that literally made me think, I don't think Ian did it. And there's other reasons we find out that maybe he wouldn't have done it coming up. But in that moment,
Yeah.
reading it, I was like, that kind of takes it away, because he's like, if in the good old days, he says in the good old days,
Right.
I would have had Tony Curran. So I mean, I don't know.
It's true.
I don't know.
Moving on, 43, Joyce with another diary entry. So we're kind of going back and forth. And I had a highlight on this little entry on the first page. And it said, so she writes down, so Ron said that if Ian Venham had killed Tony Curran, then it would be done very quickly. And Elizabeth had said that that was always the best way to kill someone, and that there was never any point of faffing around. And I was like, which, like you said, what you pointed out is she might have done it.
Mm-hmm.
She might have killed someone. Maybe Tony, maybe someone in the past. I don't know.
I know she's got, and this is one thing I highlighted from that journal entry before we move on at the very end. And since this is Joyce, she goes, "What if they arrest Ventham though, and the fun stops? Let's see what tomorrow brings." So she's kind of talking about all this stuff and how she's like getting excited about it and all that now. And I'm like, we've officially made it to wanting a murder to last longer now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because whenever you get to that point, right? Obviously, you're trying to work and solve it, but like, could you imagine like, if you're an actual officer or whatever and you get caught up in like, oh, this is exciting, like,
Yeah.
I don't want this to end.
Yeah.
Like, that is not supposed to be, it's supposed to be fast as possible. But all of a sudden these people are like, oh, I kind of want to see how this, like, I want the serial killer to stay on the loose.
Right.
Kind of see how this thing shakes out. Okay.
Likes to chase.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. She likes to chase now. Which is nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But, well, I don't know. Maybe there's something wrong with that.
Moving on, chapter 44. Now it's kind of like jumping around from each point of view of everyone's like night routine and going to bed. So you go from Ian, he's gonna have an early night, sets his alarm for 5 a.m., shuts off, has blackout goggles, noise canceling headphones, and drifts off. Then you have Ron, going to bed, kind of wrapping up the day, trying to figure out if I don't know. Ron was kind of interesting. Like, he was jumping all around and kind of missed the limelight is what I got from that. Like, he misses people listening when he talks. Then you have Ibrahim, who's just learning countries, keeping his mind sharp, trying to still think of like who could kill Tony, and he's just like memorizing Denmark and Djibouti. Djibouti.
Yes.
Need to work on that. Then Elizabeth can't sleep, and she's just kind of worried about Stephen, and yeah. Then Bernard Coddles is online. Daughter.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's just interesting.
The
Yeah.
breakdown's weird. I had one long shot idea, because whenever they're talking about Ron, it says, he liked it the other day, the police coming to see him, and he liked the shouting at Bentham in the meeting. In truth, he misses the limelight a bit. He misses people listening when he talks. And I was like, I wrote down, did Ron take the photo? Right? So you got his son and some other guy or whatever in there, but like Ron misses a lot. I'm wondering if like Ron is a little bit more involved in this
Mm. That could be good. And then Jason is like
because
covering
he's
for
read
his dad.
Ron. He's like, he's
Right.
obviously opinionated. You can shove this, where to vet them and all this different stuff. Like, if he would maybe be
That's
someone
true.
who
I
took
can
the
see
photo
that.
and be kind of linked in it somehow.
Yeah. And then that's it. So then everyone goes to bed. And then is the day.
Mm-hmm.
45. Edwin Elledge is the one who wakes up the earliest at 6 a.m., walks slowly, basically jumps ahead. Bulldozers are coming down the line with Ibrahim basically heading the march. It's time to take down the cemetery, is what I get from this. So it happens super early in the morning, 6:21. Diggers are here, coming up the drive, two of them. I mean, I don't know, do you? That beacon lit. The news was across the whole village. About 6:45 a.m. At the very latest, the news spread. The landline alone. Ibrahim had tried to set up a WhatsApp group. So it's just like the bulldozers are coming down, and then they get stopped. So as the bulldozers, now this was interesting as well. So the bulldozers are coming down the hill. They're going for the cemetery. They're pulling up, and then Ian in his Range Rover pulls up, and it's Ian and Karen Playfair, who's the daughter of the owner of who owns the land above the hill or whatever that he's trying to get.
Mm-hmm.
So they're in cahoots still, and they want that expansion to happen.
And basically, all the residents are like rioting.
Yeah, yep. And then they stop the bulldozers, and they sit down all the chairs.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a little tea party.
And this scene is awesome because Ian comes out like basically Ron's kind of leading the charge and just telling him like
you can't do this.
telling him like you can't do this and that. Ian's like if you wanted to handle this, you should have handled it in court like months ago or whatever because now it's already done. And he goes, this line I highlighted the whole thing because I thought this was so cool. He's talking about like if you think you're gonna like be able to go through us, this is what you're going through. There's a few people here who have seen off, who've seen off, and no disrespect, better than men than you. Basically talking about the people that have passed away at Cooper's Chase. Ron pauses around and looks at his audience. We got soldiers here, one or two. We got teachers. We got doctors. We got people who could take you apart and people who could put you back together again. We got people who crawled through deserts, people who built rockets, and people who locked up killers. And insurance writers. Colin Clements says to happy applause. But he goes, in short, Mr. Bentham, we got fighters, and you with your diggers at 7:30 in the morning have picked a fight.
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
there it goes.
This guy's ready to battle. But I mean, at the end of the day, you realize that it's.
Well, then Ian's response is, "Thanks, Ron. All rubbish, but thank you."
Yes, exactly. It's like one of those. I was like, gosh dang it. I was like, that had me pumped up. And then I read him go, yeah, all rubbish, thank you. There's no fight here. And then basically just undressed the whole thing he said. I was like, gosh.
Well, I mean, yeah, he basically uses his like.
And he's pretty seems to be pretty cool. Like he doesn't get too.
Ian.
Yeah, like too worked up.
Too riled up.
Yeah, it seems right now. Anyways.
And then basically, he just
like even before he was like, if I make this move, this guy's probably gonna try and kill me.
Yeah.
He wasn't like he was just like, it's just gonna happen, and I'm still gonna make it. So he seems like that kind of guy.
Yeah. And then so yeah, basically this whole chapter, what Ron does is he turns to the crowd after realizing he's kind of lost, and he goes, "Well, who's ready for a nice sit down and a cup of tea?" And so the crowd gets down to business. Chairs and tables to be collected. Kettle on the scene of what's a cupper. Too early for a drink, but let's see what we can string it out. Nothing else. This should be fun. Though again, he does make it a very good point about the service charge. So then.
Yeah, he basically says like if you guys are gonna fight and do all this stuff, your rent's gonna go up.
Yeah.
That's how that sounded, right?
Yeah, basically.
And then people are like,
yeah. But then, so in summary, Ian brings bulldozers to Cooper's Chase to build a new expansion and remove the cemetery, and the old people kind of sit down in their chairs. And then what was it? The funny part about the chairs, there was like all of them were normal chairs, but then like they're like, oh, Judas, and Judas has a bad back or
Yeah.
something. Yeah. And then so Ian's like, not. So moving on, chapter 46. Ian's like, all right, enough of this. Calling up the police, and the police are on their way. And then also, Father Mackey gets a call from Maureen Gadd about what's happening too, and so he's on his way as well. And then 47. So, yep, basically they're all sitting there. Ian sees picnic tables, ice coolers, teas being fetched and carried on padded trays. Yeah, so they're just having a grand old time.
But he's like, I'm sure this display will blow over, but he hopes the police will show up soon with the
Yeah.
amount of tax he's hypothetically paying.
Yeah,
It's not too much to ask. It's just one of those things like my tax paying dollars and the police. You see that, like the higher rank up you get or whatever, the more taxes you are, it's almost like you expect them to know, like, oh, this is coming from a tier 1
right.
taxpayer. We got to get there quicker.
Well, I like how he says he hypothetically pays.
Mhm.
Like
Oh, I like he's not actually.
Yeah, he's not
skirting taxes.
right. I thought that was really
Me
funny
too.
too, because he's like, I'm paying all this taxes
All
and
my
stuff. And he's like, look,
taxpaying dollars.
listen, we all know you ain't paying taxes. And then I thought it was really interesting though. 48, Elizabeth is not at the scene. Why is she not there? She knows everything and everywhere.
She is also not a subtle interrogator.
No.
These questions, I was just like, this is like, because she doesn't know Bogdan, and she just basically goes up to Bogdan and says like, hey, it would make total sense if you killed him. This is why, like, da 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 da. Did you do it? And he's like, oh yeah, that would all make sense. I didn't do it.
Yeah.
He was basically like, she was asking him like, what do you say? All the same, it worked out nicely. Like having him die. You have a lucrative new job, don't you? Yes, agrees Bogdan. Can I ask if you fitted Tony Kern's alarm system? Sure. He has me do all that stuff. So you could have gotten him very easily and waited for him. Sure, it would have been simple. So it's just like, I know I'm being rude asking, but did he want Tony Kern dead? Like, if he wanted him dead, might he have asked you to do it? Is that the kind of relationship you have? He goes, he trusts me. So I think he would ask me to do it, yes. So what might you have said? And he goes, there are some jobs I do, like fix alarms, tile swimming pools, and there are some jobs I don't do, like kill people. So if he asked, I'd say, listen, maybe you have a good reason, but I would say, kill him yourself, Ian, I was like, this is the most polite conversation
Right.
I have ever seen about someone
murder.
being accused of
Yeah.
of killing someone.
Yeah.
But it gives off like that almost X'd Bogdan from unless he's just playing such a sharp game. I'm just like, this guy's not doing it. He didn't do it.
yeah.
He's not being like, I want a lawyer or I can't answer that. He's like, yes, that makes
Right.
sense. That
He's
makes
not
sense.
avoiding any
But no, I did.
questions.
But I legitimately didn't do it, so I'll answer your questions.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah. But yeah, it was interesting that, well, yeah, and then I guess I'll say that in a sec, but yep, they talk. Yeah, I don't think Bogdan did it either. Very interesting though that like he did install the alarm system and stuff like that. So like if it wasn't Bogdan, it was someone that knew that Bogdan installed the alarm system, or like had access to that information,
Mhm.
aka Elizabeth.
Because the alarm system and stuff like that didn't show up in the police report, right? Like it was just
Yeah, no.
basically just a bludgeon,
there was
and we don't have
there
a
was
ton
no
of
forced
details.
entry. No
We got-
forced entry or
We know the
anything.
Fitbit broke, and we know no forced entry, and we know bludgeoning essentially.
Yeah, and the
So we
photo.
don't really know if the alarm system is, because I love how eventually they'll be like, oh, okay, but this happened. Like they're just giving you one little piece of
Mhm.
information at a time.
And then moving on, chapter 49, Joyce does another journal entry kind of summarizing what we kind of went through. I didn't have any highlights on really
Me
that.
neither.
And then chapter 50, Father Mackey is on his way. He's talking to taxi driver, and he shows up at the scene, sees about 50 residents sitting, watching, waiting for a show. And he said, fine, he'll give him a show. He supposes that this will be the last and only chance. And so then he gets out and wanders over to the gates. And Ian has yet to spot him. He takes a moment to speak. And then
this chapter
Yeah.
just felt like a transition chapter.
Yeah.
Like it didn't.
And that was
really
it.
have-
So now they're just setting up the scene.
Which is interesting. That's kind of what they use some chapters to do.
Mhm.
It's like a play.
Yeah. And then Joyce, another journal entry about just explaining her perspective on it.
Yeah, she came back too. She had to like leave. This is something they didn't talk about. Like, forgive me, my doorbell is ringing. I'll be back in a moment. From her journal entry, it goes to chapter 50. Then it goes, sorry, the ring was a parcel for upstairs. We always sign for each other. So that's where I've been. And now she's back. I don't think it really matters, but it's like a continued journal entry.
Mm-hmm.
I just noticed that.
And then also we forgot to mention also why Elizabeth and Bogdan kind of confronted each other, because Bogdan was like, forget this. I'm going to still do what Ian wants me to do. I'm going to start digging, grabs a shovel, walks around the back, runs into Elizabeth, gets all these questions. Now now Bogdan is digging up cemetery,
Digging
starting
up the cemetery before the actual digger shows up.
before the
That's actually just gonna do the work anyway. So it's almost like he's like just awkwardly digging because he doesn't like want to be doing nothing.
oh, interesting.
That's what I thought. I was like, why are you digging something that's gonna be like you could start on it and have the machine finish it for you and then do them all, or you could just wait for it to
Right.
get there and it's a machine. So it felt like he was almost trying to get away and do something. But I
Yeah.
don't know.
So then so then first grave he starts digging up, he hits a body
Oh my gosh.
outside the coffin, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he keeps digging and finds another body,
Or finds a coffin.
or finds a coffin, and then that coffin had another body, or that
Yes.
coffin had two bodies.
No, so the coffin. What did you get from that?
No, I thought it was he was saying that somebody possibly got buried alive on top
Yeah.
of that coffin.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the middle, I highlighted on 162. It says he's kneeling on the solid oak lid of the solid oak coffin, which can't be because a body can't escape from a coffin. Bogdan tries to force out a horrific thought that someone had been buried alive, had managed to somehow climb out of the coffin, but no further. Like that's what he thought at first when he hit it. Or no, that's what he was just thinking, because he says two skeletons, one inside the coffin and one outside, one small, one big, one gray and one yellow, or one gray and yellow, one cloud white.
Yeah.
So it's like, what even is that? Like
Yeah.
they're not. I guess I mean if one's not inside the coffin, they wouldn't have the same decomposition. But
Well, I mean, that's just showing that, I don't know, something about the cemetery again. Yeah, I think Bogdan is right. Someone
Didn't
got
wanna-
buried alive.
yeah, and I think that it kind of goes back. I don't necessarily know why, but I think that somebody maybe doesn't want that cemetery to be dug up.
Yeah.
And it's not Ian, which is weird. So because it's like
Yeah, Ian does not care.
Ian wants it dug up.
Yeah.
So like if that's the route that you're thinking now, then you have to be like, who wouldn't want it dug up?
I don't know, Father Mackey, maybe. That's why he's always,
I know you got him in your back pocket.
dude. I'm just saying, man. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff lining up. But moving on, 53, coming down to it, the last chapter, and this is where just all hell breaks loose.
Oh my! People we got some
This
aggression.
goes crazy. So then, basically, jumps back to the scene of with the bulldozers, and finally Ian spots Father Mackey, and Ian just loses it. Just goes berserk on him. Just saying, arrest him, trespass him, being pulled away at the scene, and then
I had just spent all that time saying Ian was chill, and this is where we see him lose his marbles.
absolutely loses his mind, and basically they get in. Ian and Father Mackey kind of get into
A little scuffle.
a little yeah, basically, and then they
Ian shoves Mackey's shoulder and knocks him back, and then Mackey reaches out for balance and they fall down. So
Right.
Mackey and Ian end up not in a fight, but
they fall together.
yeah, together from
But
pushing.
And it looks like they get back up. Chris is watching and sees that Mackey didn't fall from the push, but like kind of grabbed him down. It is what I got from
Right.
that. And then
But I did see that, like, this is where you see Ian start to show some of that aggression, because it says Chris pulls Ian Betham from the scrum of bodies surrounding him. He can see the adrenaline surging through Ian's body, the sort of thing he's seen 1,000 times before in late night drunks of too many towns. Steroid abuse.
Mm.
So I was like, uh-oh. So we got I
He's
mean, that's
roid
what this is.
raging.
The veins, writing, poking out of his T-shirt, a giveaway of steroid abuse.
Right.
So they're starting to be like, okay, you got roid rage, the adrenaline surging through his body, stuff like that. Then you got alcohol, of course, late night drunks, too many towns, and it's like, there comes a few, like all just back to back to back, a few just points to Ian being kind of a hothead.
Yeah. And then,
It all comes to a close.
so they back up after that scuffle. Ian reaches the Range Rover. The car has been clamped. His dad will be furious. He's only borrowed it. He'll have to get the bus from town, and his dad will be waiting for him. Ian is frightened and starts to cry. Don't cry, Ian. He'll see. Ian doesn't want to go home. He searches in his pockets for change, then stumbles and topples backward. He reaches out for something to hold, but to his surprise, there is only air. Ian Bentham is dead before he hits the ground.
Dun, dun, dun.
But it
Oh
was
my
weird
gosh.
because it says, so while he's walking, he walks slowly, thinking, "Where's Bogdan? Bogdan is a good guy. He's Polish. Ian needs to get him to tile his swimming pool. He's too lazy. They all are. He'll talk to Tony Curran. Tony will know what to do. But did Tony lose his phone? Something about Tony.
Oh, so he starts like losing his memory.
Yeah,
So it makes you. So
But
do you
I-
think he's already been shot while this is happening? Like he's like almost replaying his life because he's about to die, or he's like replaying kind of what?
yeah, that's what I was confused about. Cause it's like,
It's
Because
like,
I was
bro, how
confused
did you
about like
not-
I had to
yeah.
reread that last little
That's
paragraph.
true.
Like
yeah,
he searches his pockets for change. That sentence, you had no idea where that was going.
No.
Like he stumbling, topples, backward. He reaches out for something to hold, but to surprise, it's air. He's dead.
Yeah.
I was like, but that's a really good point about the whole. Because I noticed that too. I noticed I feel like something with the whole tile the swimming pool is like a code word for.
Oh. You think?
He always I don't do that. I don't kill people. I tile swimming pools for people.
Oh, interesting.
yeah. It's just like the movie The Irishman. They say I paint houses.
And that's like the.
Yeah, that's like the code for.
Oh.
See, all right.
Okay.
I
Okay.
don't know. And that's what's interesting, dude. Reading this book, I could not have imagined how many different things I would try to make sense.
Right. But
How about
now,
That was crazy.
now,
That's so
It's time for
crazy.
part two.
Part
baby.
two.
Can you see that?
and we
Okay.
got 2 murders now. We got Tony, and Ian is dead. Is Ian a murder? Do you think? Do you think someone killed him, or you think it was road rage and he had a heart attack?
He might have gotten a heart attack, bro.
You think he had a heart
You
attack?
think it's a red herring? Ian died.
Maybe.
You think it's not correlated at all?
Dead before he hits the ground.
Yeah.
I'm thinking he got shot.
He got shot? I don't know. I
You
wouldn't
don't
say
think so?
shot because of the whole paragraph, like what Miguel mentioned ahead. Like his
So-
He
head's
was
like
thinking about
So you maybe poisoned.
I either think
Maybe
poisoned,
poisoned.
yeah.
someone
That
poisoned
makes
him.
sense.
Scuffle.
Yeah,
When
that
he
makes sense.
fell,
Or he had
that's
a
what
heart
I was
attack.
thinking. Is Father Mackey like poked him
He got a
while he
little-
was falling, and they stumbled and scuffled, and he stabbed him or something with some
But-
poison.
Yeah.
But then also, when Elizabeth is like in the back interrogating Bogdan, it says she goes to sit on Bernard's bench, and it's like the bench that he always stays at. But you like, I don't know if it correlates at all, but he's always on that bench just watching and seeing. So that's why when he said he got shot, I'm thinking like, okay, maybe Bernard did it, and he was just sitting up there just waiting for an opportunity.
Bernard and Elizabeth are a killing tandem.
I
No,
don't
no,
know.
Okay,
no.
so here's the
Bernard
ti-
is
Who knows?
Joyce.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
but he's
Joyce,
like
my bad.
still.
That's that makes sense. So, but, all right. So here we go. That section's done. Let's make
I
our
don't know.
predictions. Who do we think is a murderer? We don't have to say who murdered both people because we don't really have too much to go off of Ian's yet. They haven't uncovered
don't
anything.
know.
But who would you say is the murderer? Right now, I'm sticking with because we don't have enough info on him. Thinking it's either Jason or Ron have something to do with it. Thinking mainly Jason. He's been the most shady to me so far.
You think?
which means he's probably not it.
I'm still gonna lock it. I'm still gonna lock in Mackie. Father Mackie.
Yeah.
I'm reinforcing.
Soft Elizabeth with Jason. I got soft Elizabeth. Might be Elizabeth. I don't know. What do you got?
I'm starting to think it's Father Mackey.
You think he killed both?
He did. He made
Because he's like,
he made
man,
good
I
ones."
really want that cemetery. Because maybe it's like Bogdan found
He hid some bodies in there.
he hid some bodies there. Doesn't want them dug up. And it's like, Tony, I gotta kill you first.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Ian is not giving up.
Yeah.
Thought I could win this in court. Can't. Ian, you gotta go down now.
And then another thing is too, they say murderers always visit their place of.
That's why I'm
so-
trying to reason Elizabeth possibly, but like
But
the-
that's why I feel like when Father Mackey he came back, and he
By
he was
himself,
just
right?
reminiscing so
Yeah.
much because he's like, oh man, I did all this dirt here.
and he's the one that's like, imagine what Mary could tell sisters, whoever, like, yeah, and I think that's a cool perspective, but also he spends a lot of time, almost all of his time, talking about the graveyard.
But then who was I don't know. See, everything is starting to line up for him. But then you got the guy who was sitting on the bench.
That would
That
have
was
I thought
also
that was
there.
Bernard.
But you remember, because
I
at the
think that's
very
him.
beginning, he's like, yeah, I always visit and I always need a cigarette
Hmm.
and
I'm
I
thinking.
will always revisit. What if it's, I don't know.
Here's what I would
Maybe
say.
this is another red herring.
I
Father
think the
Mackey.
security. I think the security is probably too good now for Father Mackey to have anything to do with these murders. I'm thinking, if anything, Father Mackey did something a while ago, and it's in that graveyard, and
Yeah.
he doesn't like. It's like has nothing to do with Ian.
Mm.
Has like nothing to do with anything. It's just coinciding at the same time. Because he was upset about the
It's true.
graveyard before the
Mhm.
murder even happened.
That's true.
Like, I don't want you to
Yeah.
move the graveyard and stuff like that before this murder happened. I'm not saying, but that almost would be a whole different type of murder. It would be like a
That's-
separate murder. It'd be the
it-
third murder.
I
Or
mean, honestly, it
probably
wouldn't,
wouldn't.
I wouldn't be surprised if your hypothesis did that, actually lined out,
Yeah.
came out. But we're going to find out a
So-
lot more.
Father Mackey made a big push. I'm Jason Elizabeth. I'm riding the fence.
Yeah.
But Father Mackey made a good push as a potential suspect.
Yeah, bro.
All right. So now, before we wrap up the book and go to our short
Where we at?
snippets, we were on 167. So we're going to go to, what, another 80 pages or something?
Here,
What
let's
is that, 240
let's
something?
the final let's see acknowledgments, because now that we're in the back half of the book, it's 351. Do 351 minus 166 and then divide that by 2, because that'll be whatever we have left over divided perfectly.
351 minus 166 divided by 2.
Yeah. You have to do the thing first.
351 divided by,
No.
No.
351 minus
minus
166 and then hit equal
166.
and then
divided by
divided by 2.
92 pages.
Wow,
What?
92 pages. We read less this week.
Did we
I
really?
think, yeah,
Oh.
slightly less. Because we just went to the
It was
part
on the
2.
break, yeah.
Yeah, we went to the part 2 thing.
Okay, so
We
what is
gotta
that?
read.
That's like
66,
250 something.
66. It's like 64, like 260-ish.
Okay, there's.
It's so
260
nice.
262 is 87.
I say you can make almost anything work. There's a chapter every page.
Yeah. 264 is 88.
Let's end it on a journal entry.
Okay, so.
Like end it at the end of a journal entry.
That's on. There's one at chapter 90.
Chapter 90, where's that at?
272.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you want to go 272? That's a little on the over this week, but it's not bad.
It's up to
only
you.
like a few pages.
There's a couple more in the beginning earlier. There's one on 87.
Here, let's go. Yeah, let's just go 87. That's fine.
All right.
Or wait, 87.
Yeah.
Why am I'm on 60. I don't think it's 87. Then we're only gonna have like a couple pages left. I think it's
Chapter 87.
chapter 87. My bad, dude. I thought you said page
Oh.
287.
Okay, so we're gonna read. We are gonna read chapter 87.
Yep, read
Okay.
87.
All right. So we're gonna stop at 88. Stopping at 88.
Stopping at 88.
263. Page 263.
Read up and through 87.
Wow. Fantastic. I am.
It's gonna
Yeah.
it's gonna get interesting.
I mean, literally, after I read that part, I literally texted the guys in the group chat. I was like, "Yo, that twist was crazy."
I know. I was telling him too. It's
Did
so
you guys
funny.
Did you guys read? Were you at that part yet?
No, I
when
had
I-
like
when I
20
texted-
pages left.
Oh,
I was like,
really?
I can't
I had
wait.
like 10.
Yeah.
I had like that's why I was somewhat nervous. He was like, man, the end of that book, like the twist. And I was like reading it. I was like, oh, okay. I had read like, 60 or 70 pages that morning. I was just going to do my last 10.
Yeah.
So he texted that. I was like, oh, I wonder what it's going to be. And I started reading those last 10 pages. I got like 8 pages in and I was like, did I miss something?
Oh, they mashed
And
it.
then it
the
was like
whole way.
right there. It was like the last 2 sentences.
Yep.
It was like, oh, yeah, he's falling. He's tripping. He's dead.
Yeah. Dun 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 dun.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah. But crazy.
All right.
There we go.
Come back
That
and join
is
us
it.
next week, all
That
the way
is
up
it.
to 89.
87.
Chapter
87.
87. Reading page 87. Chapter 87.
Chapter 87.
Chapter 87.
Chapter 87. Whew. Another thick one. Well, man, it's been a good read.
It is.
Been a
It
good
is.
read.
It definitely is.
But moving on to our short snippets. Starting off with the fun fact of the day.
Oh, yeah.
When you're feeling like you're low on something, like money, for instance, you obsess over it. Your brain is sensitive to scarcity, the feeling that you're missing something you need.
Wow. That makes a lot of sense.
And it's not fun, but it is more fun than we've had in the past week. So,
It was a fun fact.
no, it's fun. No, whenever I think fun fact, I think of like enlightening fact, and I always forget you're just giving us fun facts.
There you go.
But, it
That's
can
your
be
fun
like-
fact of the day, though.
That is a fun fact.
That makes a lot of sense, though. Seriously. Just obsess
Psychologically.
over it.
Yep.
All right. Our quote of the day is actually gonna come from the book.
Ooh.
Ooh,
So
I like that.
I read this one and I'm like, wow, that's a great lesson to learn. On page 125, it's great to be the fastest runner, but not when you're running in the wrong direction.
I highlighted that.
Damn.
I
Yeah.
highlighted that.
That
What
was a
page
good
was that?
125.
I know I highlighted that. Yeah, there it is.
Yep.
Running in the. Oh my gosh, yeah, I got it right there.
It's good, bro. I saw that and I was like, yep, that's gonna be the quote. I'm gonna take it from the book.
I like
Honestly,
that.
that's not bad. That
Yeah.
makes it easy for you,
Dude,
too.
I do that sometimes too. I'll find myself highlighting quotes in there, and then we'll be on here, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna say that. 'Cause it's like it makes sense in the 48 Laws of Power. It
Yeah.
doesn't really pertain to the actual murder mystery, but
All
nah,
right.
there was some good stuff. All right, here we go.
What's your.
Time for our question of the day. Since we're in spooky season, if a zombie apocalypse broke out, what would be your murder weapon of choice?
Mm.
Any weapon to protect yourself.
Mm.
What would be your murder? But not to protect yourself. It's got to be an attack weapon. You can't just be like, I want a shield. What would be your murder weapon?
It's the only weapon, right?
Just get one weapon.
You only get that.
Get one weapon.
I'm going to go with bat with nails in it. That's what I'm
This
gonna
guy
go with.
wants to
Classic.
get up close.
That's a classic.
This guy's getting
Well, I'm thinking, look,
up close.
go with the typical gun.
Mm.
You run out of bullets.
Yeah.
It's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Gotta go. Like, I'm like, all right, can't go that. Bow and arrow, too long.
I was
Bear trap,
I got
can
mine.
only use it once.
I got mine. What do you got? All right, I like it. Baseball bat with nails.
Yep.
So this
Classic.
is funny. My initial reaction is a sword, but
Oh,
That would have been pretty good
that's
too.
what I was
That
gonna
would've
say.
been
I
pretty good
just
too.
watched the movie Red Dragon with Jet Li last night, and he had this like spear. So I'm thinking I might go with a spear with the blade at the end because
I like that
you
too.
get distance,
Yeah,
and it's reusable.
yeah, I like that. That's a good one.
Chainsaw.
See, I thought of chainsaw too,
It's a good one.
but you're gonna run out of gas.
Yeah. What about
No,
yeah,
no.
that's the thing.
I'm thinking. I was thinking battery powered. Just have batteries.
Mm.
Battery
But what
powered
are
have
you gonna
batteries.
Charge.
No, have batteries. Yeah, no, exactly. You got to. But I feel. Here's my thing, right? I'm gonna last longer with the chainsaw than I am with the sword, even though I get it forever. I just rev
You
that thing
think?
up and dance. I'll do circles. Like a ballerina. With the sword, I'll probably like kill 5 and maybe die.
But here's the
I'm
I'm
thing:
just thinking like this is just
Mi-
easier to kill someone.
Miguel
with.
and I's quiet. you're gonna
Oh,
you're
that
gonna
is
you're gonna
true.
you're gonna
That is
attract him more.
true.
You're gonna be spinning a while, man.
Walking
Miguel and
Dead.
I were just a little.
Walking Dead fact.
You better,
You know?
you better do it quietly. Yeah,
We're gonna
that's
be
a good
quiet.
point.
Yeah.
That's a good
Hit
point. Hey,
right over the
and-
head.
exactly. You know what? Yeah, right. I'm running towards you guys, and we're all fighting.
Quiet.
I'm running to you
There you
guys.
go.
Yeah,
Oh
right.
my God.
All right.
I love it.
We're going to wrap it up, guys. Thank you so much for listening. And if you enjoyed reading along with us, make sure to read part 3 all the way up to page
260 something, but it's chapter 87.
Yeah. 87. Yep.
Chapter 87. We're reading chapter 87, guys, of the Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you like this show, give us a bookmark and follow our future ones and subscribe